Hi, I'm Marcus with the IndieMusicLab.com. So today I want to show you a couple really cool ways of using the silliest named plugin on planet Earth, and that's even putting it mildly, and that plugin is of course Sausage Fattener. Now, as of recording this video, the Sausage Fattener plugin comes in at a price tag of only $39 US, so very inexpensive compared to most plugins, especially for someone like me who uses it on basically every song. Many of you watching this video are probably just getting started with the plugin, so what I'm going to show you is, first off, what all the knobs do, which there are only 3 knobs, which makes this plugin super simple, which is awesome. But then I'm going to give you a few key points for how I like to use it on specifically drums, vocals, and in a couple other ways as well. So I ended up using this plugin a lot in my recent remake of Tame Impala's song Feels Like We Only Go Backwards, which sounds like this. It feels like So let's focus in on the drums to start this off, because I want to show you how you can use Sausage Fattener to beef up your drum sound. And that is, I would say, the primary purpose. If there's one way that you can really use Sausage Fattener, is specifically on drums, and even more specifically on kick drums. So I'm sending all my drums through this bus, which is just basically a group. Every DAW can do this. Doesn't matter which DAW you're using, by the way. This applies to every DAW. And so if I solo all the drum tracks, it sounds like this. So that is the drum sound. Obviously, there are lots of other effects going on. And if you want to dive deeper into the videos that I've already made that are already on YouTube, where I walk you through this Tame Impala remake, I will leave links to those videos below in the description. So before we dive into the group channel here, as you can see, or you may have noticed, I have a Sausage Fattener plugin on both the kick track and the snare track. So let's solo down even further, just to this kick drum here. And I'm also going to turn off the reverb that these drums are being sent to. That way we don't get that extra ambience, which is a bit distracting when we solo the kick. So now we have this sound, right? Now I'm going to bring this Sausage Fattener plugin back to default, which is, how do you even do that? Okay, I'm not sure. Anyway, we'll just go 0 and then bring the gain all the way back to 0. So this is default. We have, of course, fatness, color, and then the gain. Now, what I often like to do is, if the kick drum in my mix just doesn't quite have enough body, it needs more fullness, then one of the great ways to add that is by using a plugin like this and really cranking the fatness knob. Now, this is going to also turn up the volume a bunch, as you can hear. So if we go, right, which is where the gain comes in, because we don't want that much of a drastic changing of the volume. So maybe go, I love how this sausage like gets meaner and meaner. Okay. So I've turned the gain all the way down, like -29, because this fatness is really adding a lot of volume. And so here is before, and then here's after. Again, when you turn the gain down, you realize that it's not a huge difference, but it does help, especially when you layer it, and that's what I've done here with the drums. So this is one way that I use it. I'll use it on drums, and I'll often even use it on the individual kick track as well as the snare track. I use it on the snare drum as well, although mostly just to add some high-end color, which, let's look at that very quickly here. So if we have the snare drum, here's without it, and then here's with it, right? So it adds that sheenness. Without it, it just adds a little bit more high into it, and that is why I liked it. And so if we then put the kick and the snare together, and we turn off those, it just puts it over that edge. It just gives it that extra little distortion, saturation, compression on the edges of that kick and snare sound. So there you go. There's an example of how I love to use the Sausage Fattener plugin on drums to really beef them up and to make them sound more full. Now, don't go anywhere because I also used Sausage Fattener in this Tame Impala remake on the bass guitar. So let's look at that. This is another time or instance where I love using the Sausage Fattener plugin is on a bass sound, specifically a bass guitar. So here's the bass guitar track without this turned on. We've already got a lot of saturation and things happening. Now, this bass guitar for this mix, I thought already had enough bottom end with the EQ moves and everything else I had already added to it, so I didn't use the fatness knob in this case, although I do like using the fatness knob on a bass sound generally too, so you can 100% play with that. But in this case, I just went with the color knob to add that almost that high-end distortion. So this color knob could be almost viewed as, let me give you a visual of kind of what the color knob is. It's kind of something like this on an EQ, but it's more of a saturated. So it's like this, but if this boost was also distorted. So I would say that's relatively close to what is actually happening here with this color knob. It is almost a saturated EQ boost on the top end. Okay, so if we turn this all the way down, it's not too obvious with a bass guitar. It will be more obvious when you use it on sounds and tracks that already have more high frequencies already in the tracks themselves. But there's another example of how I like to use Sausage Fattener on a bass guitar. So a couple more. Now, I also love using it on vocals, and especially the color knob on vocals. So let's solo in on these vocals. Track, so many reverbs and delays and so many things going on. Again, if you want to dive deeper into everything that I did on this remake, I have videos and I'll leave those links in the description below. But at the end of this chain, I have a little bit of Sausage Fattener because I wanted this vocal to cut through the mix a little bit more, and so I cranked the color knob. So for this, I turned off those reverbs and delays for now. That way we don't get completely overwhelmed. Up again, oh no. Feels like we only go back. See, when I crank the color knob, you can really hear the effect that you can add. Backwards, darling. And then, you know, somewhere in here is where I landed on it, just to add a little boost in the high end. Again, the color knob is kind of a saturated EQ boost on the top end. Okay, so there is another example. One more before you go. One more way that I love to use Sausage Fattener is by putting it on things like strings or keys buses, really where you have a group of tracks. This could be a bunch of synth sounds or keys sounds or string sounds, things of that nature. So if we come into the keys bus here, and let's say, and this will often happen in mixes where you have a bunch of tracks like this perhaps. Now, in this case, this was not a problem, so I didn't use this plugin, but I want to show you what can often happen is these keys tracks or strings or whatever you're using, they often feel like you don't hear them enough. There's not enough of that sound cutting through the mix. And so one of the ways that you can do that, and I like to do this rather than always going for a boost on an EQ, sometimes it just sounds better to use like a color knob on Sausage Fattener. So listen to what happens on this group of keys tracks when I crank this color knob. So in context of the mix, is technically, I've already finished it in the past. I'm gonna go ahead and leave a little bit of this color knob on this keys bus where all those keys tracks are running through, just because I think that extra little boost in the top end on those tracks sounds good. It helps the mix. I think it improves the mix. Now, if you want to learn more about the plugins that I tend to use on literally every song, then I have a free guide. It's called the 12 plugins I use on every song. And yes, Sausage Fattener is one of those plugins. So if you want to learn about the 11 other plugins besides Sausage Fattener that I love to use, that I use on virtually every song, I think it's going to really help you out to just get you some clarity and to understand that no, you don't need every plugin, but these are a few that have really stood the test of time, at least for my workflow, for the music that I produce, especially like indie stuff, pop, rock, those types of sounds. And so I will leave a link in the description for that. It's 100% free. It's just the 12 plugins I use on every song. All right, thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you next time.